BlazBlue cross tag battle. Ugh. It's getting interesting. A massive patch for the game just came out. Naruto, Seth, Teddy, and Hart were all added to the game, along with balance changes for the rest of the cast. But before we talk too much about BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle as it is today, I want to focus on ArcSystemWorks, more specifically Team Blue, the creators of the game. ArcSystemWorks currently does two types of games: actual 2D games that use sprites, and 3D games that use 3D models shown from a 2D perspective. We know the 3D team, often called Team Red, is making Granblue Fantasy Versus, and industry rumors suggest that they're also going to be making Persona 5 Arena. So those who care about ArcSystemWorks games have been speculating about what's next for Team Blue, the team responsible for BlazBlue and most recently BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. That's the team that uses the 2D sprites. The reason it's interesting to speculate about the 2D team is specifically for that fact that they are the 2D team. They use sprites, which are incredibly expensive and time-consuming for modern development. It would be very unlikely for ArcSystemWorks, or at least Team Blue, to spend the money and the time required to make a brand new game with a new roster featuring, 20 more characters or whatever. It would be a massive resource sink. So if Bandai Namco gave them permission to do a JoJo game or a Naruto game or something like that, it would definitely not be ran by the 2D team because they would need to make a ton of assets for the game, which is much more expensive to do as a 2D team. Hence why projects like Dragon Ball FighterZ and Granblue Fantasy Versus were given to the 3D team, because they're brand new and it's much easier to design these games for the 3D team. So what's next for the Blue team, the 2D team? I've thought about this a lot, and I think the answer is nothing. Allow me to clarify. I think that Team Blue will continue to focus on Cross Tag Battle. There is a lot of interesting stuff that can be found in the game files of Cross Tag Battle. For example, in the game right now, we have 5 fates or series, and there are 44 characters. But when you look into the game files, more specifically the audio files for the game, you can find the announcer introducing another 80 characters from a total of 7 fates. If all of these characters do become playable at some point in the future, that would put the roster up to 124 characters. Most of the people in the ArcSystemWorks community, including someone I respect a lot, Coefficient, seem to think that a portion of these characters will be playable at some point, but for the most part, these are just leftover assets thrown into the game because they weren't sure which ones they were going to use, so they just dumped everything in there. And that is certainly possible, and it wouldn't be the first time that a game has done something like that. But there's a handful of crazy people in the community who seem to think that all of these characters will be playable at some point. So forgive me as I venture into this realm of insanity. Now, I'm not quite there. I certainly think it would be incredibly surprising to find out that all of these characters become playable in the future, and I'm not holding my breath, even though I would really love to see RWBY get that much support, but I will remind you that the Blue team isn't really doing much else right now. Mori, the creator of the BlazBlue series, when asked specifically what the team is going to be working on next, he often says things like, "I don't really know," or "I honestly don't know," and it's possible the industry rumors are wrong and Persona 5 Arena will in fact be a 2D game, but I'm inclined to believe that that responsibility will be left to the 3D team. But now I have to address the big elephant in the room. If BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle does intend to be supported for a much longer time than most people are assuming, how is that going to work out monetarily? BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle is hella dead. Like, super dead. And this would normally be the point in the video where I point out, lobby count numbers, viewership, but it feels like beating a dead horse at this point. It's just pointless. And it's hard to pinpoint exactly why that is. I'm sure we could talk about that for a long time, but that's not really important for the subject of this video. Despite the situation that the game is in, we just got a new patch that added 4 new characters and a new stage. What if BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle intends to become an infinite game? If you haven't heard the term before, don't worry, I forgive you. It's a relatively new term. Infinite games are games that never intend to receive any type of sequel and instead intend to add to the series with additional patches fairly frequently. The idea is that you continue to feed the game with minor content updates as opposed to sequels and big DLC updates. Examples of already existing Infinite games would be Counter-Strike, League of Legends, Fortnite, and Rainbow Six Siege. Now, you might have noticed some of those games in there do actually have sequels. For example, CSGO is not the first in the series, and Rainbow Six Siege is not the first in the series, but they're effectively infinite games. And most infinite games are free to play. That's not necessarily true for all of them. Rainbow Six Siege is obviously not free to play. And I could see cross-tag battle moving in that direction. With a roster of 44 characters, they could easily maintain a free-to-play system. Offering the 4 original Fate main characters, Ruby Rose, Ragnar, Hyde, and you, along with a small free-to-play rotation, you've got a pretty good set of characters right there to give to people for free if you want more people playing the game. But I'm getting ahead of myself just a little bit. This wouldn't be a change that happened overnight. It would happen gradually over time, even if it does end up happening, and this is mostly just speculation on my part. And it might not be the same details exactly as what I went over in this video, but I certainly think that cross-tag battle is going to be supported for much longer than I think people initially thought. And I think the reason for that is mostly because of complicated development stuff. It's much easier to use a sprite that was made for an older game and slightly adjust it where it needs to be adjusted for cross-tag battle than it is to build a whole new game. Now, granted, some of the characters on the leaked list would certainly require new models, or not models, sprites, and I'm certainly not saying that all 80 of these characters will be playable, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me to see a significant amount of these characters be playable in the future, because the sprite team, Team Blue, needs to be making money doing something. What else are they doing? I don't know what else they could be working on other than future cross-tag battle content. Personally, there's a few characters I would be very excited to see added. Neapolitan would be very exciting for me. Nora. There's a lot of RWBY characters I would be super excited about. Regardless of whatever is going on at Team Blue of ArcSystemWorks, I think it's super interesting. It's really weird to see a company that operates in 2 different teams, Team Red and Team Blue. And Team Red is on the top of the world right now. They're making incredible games that are incredibly successful. And Team Blue isn't necessarily doing anything wrong, but they're stuck in such an awkward position because they still have to use sprites. And it must be incredibly difficult to develop for that team. It must be a nightmare. And I'm very curious to see how that team intends to live on as we move into the future of game development, which will almost entirely be 3D models. It's just much cheaper to work with 3D models, and in a lot of cases you can even get better visuals. So I'm very curious to see what that team does to tackle that problem. I think one of the best ways to tackle that problem would be to make one of these kind of infinite style games. And unfortunately, I don't think that would work for cross-tag battle. I think cross-tag battle would fail under this system. I think it would just kind of waddle along for a while, possibly with a free-to-play system, and then eventually just kind of burn out, because the game as it stands right now is not built to support that type of system. The games that release without the intention of being an infinite game fail as an infinite game. A lot of the development decisions need to rely on the concept of being an infinite game. Think about the development time that went into story mode. Even though it wasn't a particularly compelling story mode, there was a ton of development time that would have had to have gone into that. Imagine the reallocation of resources that could have went into other areas of the game. In fact, most of the single player content could have been cut from this game if it initially intended to be a free-to-play infinite game. I mean, it didn't need to launch as free-to-play, but yeah, I don't know. And I know most of the ArcSystemWorks community doesn't necessarily see anything I'm talking about as a problem, but Team Blue is certainly not doing so hot right now. And I really hope they can get out of that rut in whatever way they can find. If they want to keep selling games for $60 or $40, then I don't know what they can do. And whatever the answer is, it's not going to come from me in this YouTube video, and it's not going to come from someone on Twitter, and it's not going to come from Reddit. It's not going to come from any of these places. The answer is either going to be that Team Blue won't exist at some point. I don't know whether it's going to take like 5 years for them to die out or whatever, or a drastically different business model that none of us can foresee will be explored in the future. Because again, something needs to change for Team Blue, especially because Team Red is on top of the world right now with Dragon Ball FighterZ and soon to be Grand Blue Fantasy Versus and whatever's next. So with that out of the way, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. Wow, that's kind of a long one. Let me know what you think of the BlazBlue cross tag battle data mine. I didn't want to go over all of the characters because there's 80 freaking characters in here, but I did want to talk about the general concept. All right, thank you so much for watching. My name is BlazBlue, and I'll see you in the next video.